It is 10:30 in the evening and welcome to Twitch Line on a Sunday night. Normally this isn't our normal broadcast day, but we're going to be doing a special Sunday night edition of Twitch Line, but this time it's not going to be answering your questions. We're going to be trying to solve the issues of the day in association to relationships. And joining me as always is my partner in crime, the yin to my yang, shall I say? It
Wow.
is it is Mr. Acorn, also known as Tim. How are you doing today, man?
Doing very well, and glad to be here. Looking forward to this. This is going to be a little bit educational, a little bit exploratory, mostly just fun. It'll be a little more laid back, but we're looking forward to something different here.
Yes, we are absolutely trying something a little different here. The show format normally is that we normally answer questions from email, Twitter, or Reddit, but instead today we're going to be answering your questions. We're not going to be We're going to be answering a specific topic, but as always, let me get through all the initial stuff. It is Twitchline at twitchlinelove at gmail.com is our web address. We can tweet us at Twitchline, or you can sort of post stuff here in the chat if you have questions for us as we go over our topics. So let us go to the main scene here, so you'll get to see me here live. How you doing, folks? It's just me, as always, hosting the show, and there's my cohort, Mr. Acorn there. Our topic for today is the cost of dating. So I chose this topic because I thought this was one of the more interesting things as people who are going out into the dating world start to realize that there are different sort of aspects to dating, there are different repercussions of dating, and then there are different costs of going out into the world and dating. And we're trying to sort of basically discuss today is the sort of financial aspect of falling in love, essentially, because there is a financial aspect to it. What people don't realize that dating sometimes is expensive, is very, very expensive, or it can be cheap. It just really depends on how you go about it. And the thing about it is dating has always cost money to people, and acquiring dates has always been very difficult for people. As we now are in the 21st century when it comes to dating, people are basically using online websites, apps. I mean, the organic part of dating has become a little different, I guess. It's like there's just all sorts of other things that just go into dating now in the 21st century that it's just for old fogies like Tim and I is very, very different.
Right. It was a different game back then, and uh, and presently, the skills required to succeed in the dating world are very different than they once were. So eh, to know kind of where you're at in time and know the methods, you're gonna have to play with all that on the way, and to know about how much it's gonna cost you to play that game is very important. So that's what we're on tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, and let us show you what people had to do in the 80s. Now, the 80s is a generation I grew up in. Tim grew up in the 80s too, but we were kids. But the onset
Right,
of
we weren't dating yet.
we weren't dating yet. Although I did have a girlfriend in 3rd grade. Does that count? I don't know.
Young Bala.
Yeah. But what adults had to do in the 80s was really, really different. I mean, like you were talking about finding, like, women. There were jobs for people who were, quote, matchmakers. You would hire a person to find you a date. That was something available in the 80s. There were things like a video dating service, for example, where you would have to submit a tape of yourself, and a woman would choose you based on like you were given a number. So if you were like, number 142 is like, I like number 142 in the video, then they would send you a message to say, hey, the woman that like checked out your dating tape picked you out and you wanted to go out. But this is the stuff that gets a little cringy. So we're going to show you something real quick from a real dating sort of compilation that was done in the 80s. These are real people. And it was funny that these people were also featured on Ellen as this video went viral. But just take a look at this as what people had to do in the 80s.
Are you looking for me? I'm looking for someone. Where can you be? Someone.
Okay, early to bed, early to rise makes a woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's why you're wiser than me. It's Stephen.
Hi, I'm Maurice. I'm an executive by day and a wild man by night.
Hi, my name's Monroe. You've probably already noticed that I have incredibly blue eyes.
Hi, my name is Phil. Most of my friends call me Big Phil.
Okay. I like to talk to people deep into the night.
I play guitar.
I'm Eitan.
Hi, I'm Fred. Hi, my name's Mike, and if you're sitting there watching this tape smoking your cigarette, well, hit the fast forward button, because I don't smoke and I don't like people who do smoke.
And that was an example of what guys had to do to get dates. I mean, video dating services were very popular in the 80s because supposedly the idea was that you could show your personality to these women and you wouldn't just go by looks. So if you found something very interesting, like dressing like a Viking, would entice someone, then you would dress up as a Viking. But this was just one of the sort of, quote, old methods of dating, like, you know, the going out to the bar, the video dating service. There were ads that you could place in a newspaper, personal ads that people could actually answer. That was another way of doing it, where you would put your description in a personal ad that you would pay for to see if you could get anybody to sort of date you. I mean, these in nowadays would be considered archaic, right, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. Those video ads that you just showed were pretty cringeworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, that's like the beginning of online dating. Like that's what it looked like. So anyone who was doing, in the advent of the internet, anyone who was involved in online dating at that time was basically an outcast. If you said you were trying to find someone online to date at that time, you were basically laughed at, and people thought you were a freak. It was just better to be, alone forever rather than be considered a person who was looking for love online. And now look at where we are now. So, those kind of things at their time, barely acceptable, but still that's all some people had. So if you weren't going to go out to the bar and you weren't going to, use the more traditional methods, people started doing that kind of stuff. And then you consider the internet came on and it got strong enough that you could actually start sending, messages, videos, that kind of thing. Uh, People started texting, people started emailing. America Online came around, and people were messaging for the first time, and then chat rooms and things like that. And so that it led to some scandalous stuff, but nothing compared to what happens now. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've gone to a far extreme when it comes to online dating at this point, and it's just one of those things in which it's like the stigma is gone from online dating, which is actually really interesting.
right,
But
actually, it's at this point
yeah,
now. If you're not, like, if you're single and you're not online dating, people look at you like you're weird. Like, why aren't you? Were you trying to hide away from the world or something? You don't have social media, so yeah, it's completely flipped.
and that whole sort of flip is just very unusual. I mean, like you just see it that it takes time for people to trust technology, and you see it now with the different sites and the different online dating that it goes on. So, like, what like is the thing about it was is like the traditional dates that people would go on to also from the 80s to now has changed, because when we take a look at like first dates of what people used to do, the old standard was literally, you pick up your significant other, the person that you're going on a date with, you take him out to a restaurant, something nice, you go maybe to a movie or an event, and then maybe you have some after dinner drinks or like a little sort of nightcap to end the night, and then you go back and then you drop her off. Maybe if she likes you or if something happened, you get a kiss goodnight, and it was a successful first date. The problem is that that type of traditional dating isn't standard anymore because uh, for people like us, the economy wasn't necessarily great to a lot of millennials going forward, and the cost of things have gone up. So let's take a look at the cost of what a quote standard date would cost. Now, this was a standard date, and it would say, and now, assuming you're in 2019, you don't have a car, let's say you ride share, dinner out for two with a 20% tip, two movie tickets, and two alcoholic drinks. The image on the left is the 10 most expensive cities to go on a date with, assuming those standards. And you look at the top five, and the average total date cost, depending on the restaurant that you would go to, is anywhere between 127 and $155, and that's in the big cities like New York, San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, and Miami. We live in the Washington D.C. metropolitan area, which is number 6 at $125.99 to go out to a movie, 2 tickets and 2 drinks. We know because beers in this city, even if you're in the suburbs, cost about anywhere between $6 to $10 a drink. So like if you're getting mixed drinks or maybe a specialty whiskey drink or something, it could be upwards of $15 to $20 a drink, which is sort of crazy. But it's also eye-opening when you see the 10 least expensive major cities, which are like Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Richmond, Cincinnati, and Charlottesville, where they're still all up against that sort of $100 level. Oklahoma City, the only city under $100 to go out for a dinner and a movie, which is sort of crazy, Tim. I mean, like the cost of dating just for a standard quote traditional date has just gone really, really high. I mean, like in the old days, I remember you could sort of survive on $20 if you were a teenager.
Yeah, see, and we were not dating back in the 80s. This is more like 90s dating
Hmm.
for us.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in the 90s, you could do this stuff for $50 maybe for
maybe.
two.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you're going, what you're going to do. And if you're a teenager and you're trying to keep it real cheap, you could do, you know, fast food and that kind of thing and do it for $20. So this is a huge jump. And the fact is, wages have not jumped to this, to the extreme that the cost of things have jumped. So young people now have to be pretty clever on how they're going to make this date thing happen, considering how much it can cost, especially if you live in one of these huge cities.
Yeah, and like a lot of people end up, especially millennials, will end up floating to a major city for a job, and as an entry level college graduate, for example, living in those cities can be really, really a lot, really, really rough, and just being able to date is almost a luxury at that point. You're trying to make rent, you're trying to survive, you're trying to commute, you're basically just trying to live and make sure that you have the ability to survive in the major city. And then there's the expense of having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and it can get very, very expensive. And it's just one of those things in which, oops, sorry, didn't mean to start that video up again. Didn't It's just one of those things in which it's just not something that a lot of millennials or even people growing up really take into consideration is what that girlfriend that you had in college, if you do move in together into a big city but you're making enough money, can be a very, very large hit onto the wallet. And it can be one of those things in which it can be sort of detrimental for relationships.
Yeah, and there's some differences as well. I mean, when we were young lads doing this stuff, we at that time it was considered standard for a man to pay for the date.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't you weren't going to split the check. It just wasn't going to happen. Today, it's much more acceptable to sort of swap back and forth between who's paying. It comes down to who's making more money, and oftentimes women can make more money. So, and then equality. So, I think that traditionalists out there are still going to be like expecting the man to pay for at least for the first date, but you don't know. Could be anything at this point. Um, but with the cost of things, I have a feeling that splitting those costs in early on dating be really important. Just because, like you said, with rent, with your phone bill, Comcast, internet, all that other crap that loads up, by the end of it, do you really have enough money to be able to go out and blow $125 on a sexy date in a big city? At that point, you got to get super creative. And so, I think that's kind of the reason we came up with this topic tonight is how to get that creative juice going and manage dating in spite of all this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like you want to find like a happy medium for what you're going to be doing, and that's our whole plan for the show today. So the thing about it is like what does a date night look like now? I mean, like how has dating changed from when we were actively dating in the '90s and the early 2000s to what it does now? And social media has become a huge part of what we do. Um, like dates, you can even arrange dates through all sorts of like the normal sites that you're on, through Twitter, through Facebook, and emailing somebody. But dating sites and dating apps have become very, very prevalent in today's society, and that's become like a major way of people meeting together, especially if you were a younger person. So therefore, like, the apps like Twitter, I mean, excuse me, like Tinder, Bumble, if you're a woman, and eHarmony and Match.com, those are like the big major players, but there are a hell of a lot more apps out there, especially on your phone. So, which has become a huge tool for dating. Like your phone has become like your portal to finding people out there who could be a match for you. There are apps like Plenty of Fish. I think there's also something that I was reading about that was called The League, which is a very unusual one. Which is it's
Is
based
that
on
the VIP one, the elite one?
yeah, that's the elite one. So this dating app, you have to apply to actually get in, and the application process supposedly is very difficult. You have to be able to fall within the standards, but if you are in, supposedly, then you are a very like wanted person. So, but it plays on the aspect of the whole Cartman land aspect. If you ever watch that episode of South Park, more people want in if you don't let them in. Sort of that whole aspect. Facebook
Yeah.
worked that way early on when it restricted itself to university email addresses, and like you had to be at a university to be able to sign on for Facebook early on, and it became this phenomenon where only university students were able to sign on. So everybody who didn't have a university address, was like, oh, I want to get in. Oh, I want to get in. And when they finally opened it up to everyone, there was this big rush to sign on. So that is the sort of concept that they are going for. But yeah, the use of your phone has become a major sort of point with regards to sort of being the nexus of the dating world. And like, let's take a look at some apps that we sort of found online, Tim. And like, these are the apps that we sort of picked, but there are so many more. But the thing about it is like online dating and these apps are not free in most occasions. There are free aspects to them, but in most cases, a lot of dating apps will require you to pay some sort of money.
Right. Microtransaction loot boxes. You got to buy your way to love these days. That's the way it looks. I mean, you look at something like Tinder here. You get your swipes, a certain number per day. If you want to throw down $10 a month, then suddenly you move into a different category of being able to date with it. So you have unlimited likes. You can get special things like being able to take back a swipe if you screwed up. You get 5 super likes per day, right? So you can indicate to someone that, like, yeah, I've been swiping all day on these girls, but like, you're the special one, so you get a super like. And then once a month, you can get something called a boost, which just puts you as like a top profile in the area. So you basically bought your way into being selected to be special. It's like unlocking a golden border around your, around your icon on one of your characters in your games. It's that kind of shit.
Yeah, and
And
it's that.
then,
It's
yeah, go
like
ahead.
that. Yeah, I mean, it's like that. I mean, it's crazy. So it's like you're buying levels essentially to Tinder, and like at $9.99 a month, if you're under 30, It's $120 a year if you want Tinder Plus, which is the thing that Tim was calling it. If you're over 30, there's a punishment for you being old because it's $20 a month. So the price goes up to $240 a year just to be on Tinder Plus to get your name sort of out there
Yeah,
and higher
what
than
do you
above.
think that is about? Do you think they're just like, hey, you're 30, you got to be starting getting desperate now. You better put down that extra $10.
It plays into that. I think it plays a little bit into the desperation, but it also plays, I think, into the fact that a 30-year-old can afford $20 a month, and a
True.
25-year-old might not necessarily pay $20 a month for Tinder, because at 30 you're starting to get established. Possibly you were more career oriented than you were dating oriented. A lot of people just sort of put their love life on hold as they try to get their finances together, which is actually, something that is possible. But it's just one of those things in which it's like a 30-year-old is expected to have more money, but I know a lot of broke 30 to 35-year-olds. So it's like, you know what? It could be a punishment as much too. So it's pretty nuts. So what do you know?
Right. It's like almost a kind of gatekeeping. I mean, if you don't have the money to participate in this, you're with the masses at the bottom, uh, you know, just counting on those few swipes you get a day to get you something good.
Hmm.
And this e- e- everyone is on this. This is not like you can opt in or out. I mean, you can decide which kind of dating app you're using, but if you're just not using it at all and you walking into the bar, yeah, you got to take your chances with it. But most people, even in the bar, are sitting there swiping, looking around.
They absolutely are. They might be like if they're a super user or a Tinder Plus user, they could be in the bar with you, because remember, like it shows the location of that particular person and where they're at. I mean, personal anecdote: I turned on Tinder when I was in Istanbul, when I was there visiting, when I was there sort of sightseeing and stuff with, when I was with other people, and the prevalent use in that city alone was crazy. Just like people just willing to match and just doing so. Just trying to see anybody's like available and stuff like that. And I got a couple matches, and I was in the city for a day, and
Yeah.
in like a really like a ritzy location. And it's like, oh, you're at this particular location. Oh, that must be really really good. I mean, that stuff happens. It's crazy. And then you've
Yep.
got, what do you got? I mean,
That's
like, it's nuts. I love it, but at the same time, it's I find it saying it's like swipe to find love is essentially what it is to
yeah.
me.
I think in Turkey and in certain countries as well over there, um, dating might not be as socially acceptable. And like, yeah, I think Turkey is open. It depends on kind of which side. If you're on the Asian side or the European side, but like when I lived over in Abu Dhabi, you couldn't just go up and talk to a girl on the street. You really weren't even allowed to. If you were in a bar, you were sort of, no one was looking at you. You could then go talk to someone in there. But a lot of what was going on, a lot of way people were connecting was online. And because the government blocked those apps, people had to get creative about how they made those connections. And so it actually ended up being free over there for those people because they couldn't use the traditional methods like or the modern traditional methods like online dating and apps. Um, so did you want to go further and look at some of these other examples?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up like eHarmony and Match.com, because those are like those are like the old standards of what online dating used to be. I mean, online dating, like the what people do for online dating now has just sort of evolved into almost like a market for people as you're swiping and answering easy questions. But like the old standards like eHarmony and Match, which have also the highest price plans online, sort of looking to see what type of price plans they had online with regards to it. eHarmony and Match supposedly they have sort of vast questionnaires. They're trying to sort of match you up after a whole bunch of questions. They claim to be a little bit more scientific than a lot of the other sites, less sort of superficial. They go into like emotional questions, how you would deal in certain situations and stuff. And it's almost like sites like that sort of like are targeting like a different type of dater, like the dater who almost has had enough of the Tinders or the Bumbles or even the OK Cupids of the world, where you can find somebody real quick, but the person that I find is just meh. It's like so. It's
Wow,
like
wow.
it's like that's you're looking at a person and they're attractive, but you chat a little bit, you maybe know a little bit about the personality, but you end up going out and it just doesn't work out. And
Right,
like you
there's
go,
no guarantee there.
yeah,
eHarmony, Match, those questions that they put out there are supposed to match your personality, so that even if that physical thing doesn't happen right away, that perhaps you have something underlying to maintain that connection.
yeah, and that's a company called Hinge. One maybe last, the one that's listed there at the very end is one that uses your Facebook connections and what you like, to sort of fill your profile based on commonalities. So they use your Facebook profile, for example, to match up all the likes that you've liked on Facebook. So be it television shows or movies or activities or something like that, and will fill your sort of listing of people that you could sort of match up with, not by looks, but by common connections. And they say that they've designed a site for you to delete, or an app for you to delete, excuse me. That's what their site actually says if you go to Hinge and look it up, because the whole idea, and they're sort of upfront about it, we don't want you to be a member for very long. We want you to find the love of your life, or supposedly your bride or your girlfriend or something like that, as quickly as possible. So it's an interesting approach to some of these sort of online sites as to how they sort of talk about stuff. But this is the new norm, and to me, it's a little interesting because I haven't done any online dating in forever, and I've always joked about like maybe possibly doing an online sort of thing here on the show just to see how something goes to set up, or if I set up some like a Match.com account or even a Tinder account, or reactivate my Tinder account to see what I do and like how I can improve my account and what kind of responses that I get being a 41-year-old male. So it'd be very interesting. That was always an interesting topic, but yeah, this is the new norm, and this is how people find people. And but there are associated monthly costs with it, and if you're on there for a long, long time, it is a hit to the wallet, even to a minor extent, and in the and in eHarmony and Match.com's case, a major extent, where eHarmony could cost you upwards of $480 to $500 a year if you don't find anybody real fast. So it's a very expensive.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, you can almost say that people who are willing to spend more money either have the preconception that putting more money in will yield more results or better results, or they're basically saying like I'm paying to be good because I want this now and I want this to happen. And anyone else who's really serious about dating and wanting this to happen will also be paying this money, and they're not messing around. So maybe that's like a meeting point there. Whereas if you go onto one of the free sites, somebody might just be throwing something out there and not responding and that kind of thing. So in a way, it might benefit you to actually spend the money, knowing that someone else has that money coming out of their pocket to make this thing happen too.
But it is what it is now. So it'd be interesting. So let's just say, let's go forward a little bit. You use one of the sites, you meet somebody organically. Maybe you um, are having hookups from friends that like, hey, you really really like this girl. It's like dating is different. There are different sort of levels of dating. So there's like what we mentioned, the dinner and the movie and the initial casual sort of date. But we're here to sort of help you find like what types of dates you need to sort of fall into and how it can help you sort of go along. So let us bring you to what we call the three dating categories. And Tim, for those online here, like let's break down these categories for them as we start off. Is it's almost like a progression, almost as how you would sort of go with your significant other.
Yeah, right. So we all start off casual. We're just getting to know this person, and as they say, your first impression is the only impression. That's the only real one, the lasting one. So you got to impress from the start. And how do we do that? One of the ways is putting the money on the table and saying, "Hey, I like you enough that I'm going to not worry about my checkbook. I'm going to come out here and try to wow you. Go big, buy some expensive seafood dinner, throw the wine down on the table. Let's get loose." you know, and so you might choose a nicer restaurant. You might spend a little extra money on your clothes. You might choose an activity that costs a little bit extra money. But the bottom line is, you cannot be seen as someone who's trying to save money on this date, because that's going to disqualify you in a way. Um, so and casual dating, that can go on and on, especially in the world of online dating.
Yeah.
You see people that are one and done. They go out on a first date with a person. One of them didn't feel it. The other one didn't feel it. They both didn't feel it, and it's done. So where are you? Your next date? Back to square one, where you got to impress. And if you show up and you get tired of this experience, you get burnt out, and you stop trying to impress on the first date, you stop putting the money down, the person across from you is going to see that. And even though it really sucks and it's not exactly fair, it's kind of the way it goes. So those initial dates are probably going to be the ones that really set you back. As we move forward into a serious relationship, and that's dictated by the people involved. That could be date three if you all are really into it, or it could take a while. But at this point, that sort of initial motivation to impress is lessened. You still got to do something, but uh, you don't need to put on airs. You can ease up a little bit with the clothes. You can save a little bit of money. You can go to places that like known locations, where you've had dinner before, you can spend more nights in, cook for each other. And it's actually more okay if you're a little bit cheap because, this is supposed to continue on. And if you blow all your money at the beginning of the month, there are no more dates at the end. And that doesn't serve either of you. So those, once you're a little more serious, you ease up a little bit, uh, but, make good use of your money. So it is almost better to go out to a nicer restaurant and have it be a lasting happy experience to carry on forward rather than just three cheap dates in place of that. So, you're trying to maintain this relationship. You care about this person. You want them to feel good and happy. So you want to still, you know, you're not penny pinching at this point either.
Exactly. At
Yeah.
this point, like it's assumed, right? Like both people are into each other, and it's more about trying to sort of understand like each other more than the impressions that they make. So trying to find out what the likes of the other person are, what the dislikes of the other person are. Whereas in the initial casual dating is just to sort of the basic get to know you, like the sort of superficial levels of hey, he seems like a nice guy. I'm going to try to get in another, maybe I'll go on another date. Or she's a very nice girl. I really would like to go on another date with her. Stuff like that. That's how I sort of look at it, at least. And
Yeah.
serious relationship time is when I guess the cards come out. Like the real you comes out. And like whether or not that partner of yours is wholly accepting of who you are, the bad habits, the good habits, the what is it like the the bad parts of you that people have known about forever, but she's just discovering. Serious relationship
The
time.
stuff you were trying to hide in the
It,
casual dating phase.
exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, if you are a cheapskate or you are sort of very conscious about your money, let's say it that way,
Frugal,
frugal,
thrifty.
yes, it'll be here where she discovers it. It's like because you won't want to spend money on things or you won't want to do things, and can be a breaking point for some people. Can be one of those things that you bond on because could be secretly she also is a cheapskate, and two cheapskates go together, two frugal people go together. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes you
Yeah,
need sometimes you need the other person to sort of balance out the relationship, like a person who likes
yeah.
to spend a little bit more money. Just
Oh
because
man,
the yin
let's
and the
talk
yang of
about
it
my
all.
marriage. Let's talk about my marriage right now. Before we moved into the phase three of the marriage part, um, I will share my personal experience with my wife, who was my girlfriend. We've been together 4 years now, so let's rewind 6, 7 years, and I'm living in Beijing, and my job there is okay. It's not bad. I'm doing better than the average for sure. And I met my wife, or I met my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, and she and I started going out. And in China, it's amazing because a little bit of money goes a long way, especially when it comes to food. So we were living big, going out to restaurants all the time. It's actually cheaper somehow to go out to a restaurant than it is to buy groceries and try to make food at home, at least as a expat. And so, we got accustomed to a certain kind of lifestyle. And when we went from there actually to the Middle East. So we went from spending, you know, $3 on some noodles to $30 on some noodles. And of course, salary jumped up going over there. But at the same time, uh, my wife had this sense that, like, going out and going on these dates was a way to keep things lively, keep the romantic part of our relationship hot. And she went through and picked out all the best places to go in Dubai, and I'll tell you, I spent a lot of money on food.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, but at the same time, uh, because it was a serious relationship, and because I was still trying to maintain this level of happiness and excitement and romance, and because I like food, it was acceptable. So now, uh, fast forward to the marriage. Once we're actually sort of settled down, we come back to the states. Money is tighter here, and people are starting to get to routines. Right, there are even
Yeah.
more nights in. You're cooking for yourselves. Usually, you're more money conscious, time conscious. So, going out and blowing money on that means that that money is not going towards some other element of your marriage, right? And this is even without children. If you got kids, that's a whole other thing. That's all your money basically.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to say everyone, but some people, they stop trying to impress.
Yeah.
They say, you know what, you got the ring, and let's have some hot dogs and baked beans for dinner. But no, not. I mean, uh, in marriage, yeah, you got to find time. You got to take the person out, make them feel special, make them feel that romance. But uh, if you do it or don't, it doesn't matter. But there will be one day a year on the anniversary when you just have to do it. You got to go big. You got to put the money on the table and say, I care about you. I love you. I'm happy that we're together and that we're going forward. And I'm going to show it to you today by spending way too much money on food.
Yeah. Well, the anniversaries are birthdays, also a big day. Don't forget the birthdays. Oh man, that was not good either. So if you forget your wife's birthday, that is problematic at best. But yeah, I mean, you see the cost changes. If as you casually date, it can be a little bit more expensive in the very beginning. As a serious relationship develops, your costs will go down, but it is sort of blended between both of you. And then as the marriage happens, your money needs to be focused on other things in your life, but you will and do spend a lot of money on those special dates. So it's pretty nuts there. I mean, like, of what you're going to have to do, but hopefully, like, it's one of those things in which those extra costs that sort of come in, you'll be able to sort of handle if you're married. Two incomes, supposedly, or maybe just one income as your wife or husband decides to be the homemaker and take care of kids or something like that at home. So that also happens too. So and just the stuff associated to that. But when it comes to dating overall, though, like, let's talk about the pitfalls of dating. Sort of like, what can you do to sort of avoid the normal ways that your wallet can get sort of crunched as we go into the dating. And this applies to sort of everyone. I mean, like, it most this technique will sort of mostly appeal to the casuals, as there will be specific casual sort of money saving techniques. But then there are also ways that in a serious relationship or in a marriage you can sort of find a way to sort of let that dollar stretch a little further, yet still have a little bit of intimate time. So let's go forward and show the number one sort of way that one of our friends does it, and he says that is very successful in sort of weeding out people. It is the short coffee date. So, assuming you're trying to make a good first impression with anyone, but you're a little sort of sketchy about going out on a real date or something like that. A lot of people, and there's even websites like, I think it's Coffee and a Bagel is a specific one that, for example, that you meet for something very, very short. Sort of like a simple cup of coffee doesn't cost more than $6. And you sit and you get to know each other for 30 minutes to an hour, possibly, and then decide whether or not that person is somebody that you want to sort of go out with and go on a real date, on a real excursion. But it's a sort of nice way to sort of feel out somebody and see if that particular person is going to be somebody that you want to spend some more time with, and in sort of a more inexpensive way.
Yeah, and we should give a little background here. Um, our mutual friend that had this gem got there because of the tragedy of endless first dates, where he was putting out all kinds of money trying to impress these ladies, and not getting to that second date. Some of them were even showing up for the dinner just to eat, not because they were actually interested in him. So he had to think of a way to uh, be able to meet these people, see if there's something there, see if there's a reason to get together for that dinner even, and uh, coffee was a much better, much easier option. And if things weren't going well, they could walk away, and it was maybe $10. Uh, so it's pretty smart.
Yeah, it was a very smart technique, and is very one of those things in which it's like, you find ways to sort of help yourself. And I think a lot of people who are sort of starting off in the online dating world, it's a nice little intro, so you don't really have to get neck deep in it, and avoids those people who are just looking for a meal or looking for a night out or just not being very serious about it, because it's like, if they're just if they're willing to refuse a coffee date just to sort of figure out whether or not maybe you don't want to go out with them. So just a nice sort of way to sort of filter out people. Another one is this one is always the go to, as the youngins say, the Netflix and chill. And it's even better if it's not even your Netflix account and you're using somebody else's, so it's not even your cost. So you're not even paying for
Yeah, that's
Netflix.
$0.
That's $0 there. The come over to my place and I have some snacks and we'll watch a movie. Of course, the connotation of Netflix and chill is hooking up, but if you really are in a serious relationship with somebody and you just sort of want to hang out with that person in a non sort of serious event, a cheap movie at home has always been a good way to sort of let people in to where you live, see if she likes where you or what your apartment is like. It's a nice 2 hour to 3 hour intimate session. You could do all sorts of different things at home. Afterwards, if you really get
Mhm.
into it, yeah, huh?
Yeah,
And
that's free too.
that is also
Friction is
free.
free.
Yeah. So
Friction is free.
yeah, friction is free, indeed. And the thing about it is like uh, I'm a homebody. I like movies, so like this would be an option that I wouldn't normally pick because sometimes you meet people who are really really nice, but they just don't like going out. There are a lot of people who think that once you find that person, it's so much nicer just to sort of hang out at home and not really go anywhere. You don't have to get gussied up. You don't have to sort of put on extra clothes or like do extra things. You just sort of get over here, chill out, sit on the couch, talk about things, and you just go and then end up watching a movie or two, and then either go home or like spend the night. It's really nice and super inexpensive. So I'm a big fan of it. So I don't know about you.
Sure. Why not?
So, the third one is the I'm broke ass date, like your nature hikes, your museums. In the DC area, museums are free. It was eye opening to myself that in other countries or even other cities that you have to pay to get into a museum. You're so used to the Smithsonian and the way that that happens that it's very very interesting to see that in other cities you have to pay $10 to get into the Guggenheim or $20 to get into the Rijksmuseum when I was in Holland. But for example, when but I'm in DC and you want to have an exhibit in the Natural History Museum, you just walk in. It's great. There are a lot of nature locations that you can go if your significant other is into the outdoors. A simple drive into the mountains, and all of a sudden you're hiking and you spend 3-4 hours. And the last one I added, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but the excuse of, I'm sorry, I have a lot of stuff to do today, so I'm not going to be able to see you. But if you just want to hang out, and you want to run errands with me, this is the I'm getting shit done, yet you're with me, so we can spend some time together, yet I'm not spending any money date. And this is a good excuse if you're in a relationship and you just want to hang out with the person, but you've been spending a lot of your time with them and you haven't been able to sort of do anything on your own, but you need to get stuff done. So you ask them to run errands with you, and possibly you get some of her errands done at the same time. So it's mutually beneficial. So
Okay, yeah, that works in the serious dating, or at
yeah.
least like semi-serious.
Mhm.
As a casual, I wouldn't pull that one.
Oh
I
no,
wouldn't
no.
say like
Mhm.
get to know you through running errands. That they're gonna look at you like you're trying to save money. Um, at least with the museums, it's like this person's an intellectual or trying to appear that they are. Um, and the nature hikes, yeah, this person could be eco-loving hippie, uh, but maybe you connect on that. I would just say that for people that are choosing these kind of like experience dates, just uh, kind of like measure it and see if the person that you are with is good with that kind of thing. But you don't want to come out and be like every single date you don't spend any money on, that you're indicating that you're just not the kind of person that's going to spend any money, because at some point they're going to catch on that, like, what's the deal here? You got nothing. You don't want to spend any money on me. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. These are just sort of go-tos with regards to options that you should not be using all the time, but is an available way of spending time with somebody without excessive cost. Though with nature hikes and museums, there are added costs. Maybe you want to buy a print at a museum that you go to. Nature hikes require, materials. You need like shoes, clothes specifically. Maybe you're going on a trail or a park or something that requires an entry fee or something like that. It doesn't cost too much, but it's definitely something that will cost money eventually a little bit. So
Right. It's
some
manageable though.
it's a manageable expense. Like the next thing that you would want to do is another homebody thing, games at home. If you are an avid video gamer, you could basically have something like a Nintendo Switch night or an Xbox night or PS4 night where both of you play games that are fun to you. Nintendo is usually a lot more fun, a lot more sort of interactive when it comes in. You could play Mario Party or racing games or something like that. Your Xbox and your PlayStations. I don't know how many of those games actually exist, but that could happen. Maybe PC games where both of you play online. A lot of people have married meeting through WoW, for example. I mean, how many people meet people through MMOs and play those, and that's how you met, and that's how you sort of spend a lot of your time. Another
Would you consider that a date if you were both online playing a game but not in the same location?
maybe like they don't have two-person raids anymore. They don't have two-person raids or anything, but it would be interesting to have if a game decided like they found out that a lot of people like sort of two-man content or three-man content, where you could sort of play and being online is considered being together. I mean, like you're on Discord, you're talking to each other normally, you're trying to just basically do something together, but you're not in the same room. I would assume that could be a date. I mean, we are. I mean, like it used to possibly. I mean, like in the older days, maybe somebody would consider that ridiculous. But nowadays, I mean, like if you are, let's say, playing, if you let's say hooked up via playing Fortnite, and the two of you really like playing Fortnite, but you don't have two computers at either place, maybe a date night is just you two kicking ass and killing people each other on Fortnite. That could
Yeah, I
be
guess so.
legitimate. Yeah.
You could be in your own little private Discord channel and chatting away, and this would probably be an option for people doing long distance,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you met someone online. But if you're going to be looking for in-person kind of deal, I'd move more towards the console stuff, those controller in hand, side by side kind of thing. Um, or as the rest of this says, board games, card games, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of fun to be had there, uh, and a even if it's a group thing and you're kind of still trying to feel out whether you like this person and whether they like you, you can still flirt through the game. You can the things that you say, little side conversations during the game, you can see what's there. Hell, even mahjong. What the hell?
Yeah, I know exactly. Like, the card games, mahjong, a lot of that stuff is great when you're trying to do like it's a great way of friends introductions. You can get a couple that you know really, really well, who is friends with you, or her or she has a couple friend that would like to hang out and get to know you. Um, Games at home are a great way to getting to know people. It also reveals a little bit of personality. How competitive are you? How much of a pushover are you? How intelligent you can be, because it could be Trivial Pursuit or one of those trivia games, and you're trying to sort of match up against the other couple. Because stuff comes out when you play games like that, and like people have a tendency to figure out, oh wow, he's really competitive, or oh, he's really funny, or he's really, he's not giving irreverent answers and just trying to make people laugh because he's trying to hide the fact that he doesn't really do good in trivia games or something like that. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think I would have been happy to have my wife see that part of me early on. I think she would have been like, "This dude is a fucking rager, and he's not very, very good
So
to play with."
so story time when it comes to playing games with Mr. Tim here. Uh, he believes that when you're playing games such as guess, what was it? It was Taboo,
Yeah,
and the games like that. He believes that you should be able to think exactly like he does. Well, we don't. And the amount of rage that I've seen come out from him when we're trying to guess a topic that he's giving clues on that we are not obviously getting, that he just gets frustrated and more frustrated. And I think there was one time you yelled, was it you yelled at Shay or myself or me about a game that we were playing, and it's just like, I can't believe that you just didn't know. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know.
I would never get physically violent, but I would tell you that you're stupid because you should have known better. And I mean, from this interaction, you could see why we've never dated.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, but it's really fun, and it's very eye opening onto the personality. So games at home are a very fun thing, especially couples games. So like you have a competitive partner there. It goes to show if you end up winning a lot of things together, it's a good bonding experience between the two of you. Uh, Another thing that we also need to know about a person is that they need to learn to cook. No matter who you are, you might think that cooking is not for you. Guess what? When you are dating, cooking becomes an activity that you can share, and it becomes an activity that becomes very useful when you're not dating anymore and you're trying to save money. There are videos online that make it ridiculously easy to cook anything, and you need to learn it. Cooking is an activity that you joke about in your early years about, haha, I'll never learn how to cook. My wife will cook for me. Or, haha, my husband will always cook for me. No. Guess what? It's a useful skill. It is also a useful skill to save money. And it is a great way to impress a significant other if they come over. So you cook somebody dinner, handmade, everything from scratch. That is a big one up, especially like it tastes way better than it looks. Because that shows that you have skills. You have the ability to read instructions and put things together. It's very impressive, and it's one of those things that's a big plus in the column when it comes to seeking out a partner.
Right. And then you also have to look at the connection you can make with someone while you're cooking together. Right? Cooking together can be really sexy. Put on some nice music, set the mood. One person's chopping, the other one's heating stuff up, and you're working together, and the result is what you've created together. And it's a way of bonding. It's my wife and I regularly cook together, and we always have fun doing it. So I recommend that one as well.
Yeah, really good one. And then the final one is for those monsters who love going out but hate the cost of drinks at bars. Pre-game at home with with ride sharing apps and everything that are available to everyone. Drinking at home is cheaper. Paying $10 a drink, $20 a drink at a bar or a club or something like that is annoying. And depending on the dating level where you are, this is more probably for couples who have been out together for a while. Getting to the club already, little happy, makes it for a fun experience. And it's cheaper because you'll probably only be paying the cover for the guy, because usually women get in for free, and that is a reality of life for you guys out there listening to the cast. You will always pay to get in someplace unless you beat the time limit or whatever like that, because I think most clubs will allow guys in for free up until a certain point, and then you have to pay to get in. But you can lessen the damage by sort of drinking at home with your friends and with and your significant other, and then just going out there and having a good time. It's one of those things in which if you're not a drinker, even better. So it's like, the cost of alcohol is one of those things outside that is very expensive and can be a real drain on the wallet.
Right. And if you are, this is the same as it was with the cooking at home. If you are a creative person and interested in showing off a little bit, making a really nice cocktail is actually very impressive to drinkers of the opposite sex. You can give them a little bit of your personality, a little bit of fun, and if you're good at it, you get a lot of credit there. You become the go-to person. It's like, oh, you know, Z, he's going to be the guy that's hooking us up before we go out today. Um, he knows how to handle it.
Yeah, it's sort of nice. So let's see what we can say. Lightning round sides. Like what do we want to make sure that everybody knows, or sort of ask themselves, with regards to dating? So let's bring this up here. Um, we have to ask the question to ourselves: is the cost of actually dating a person a deterrent for people? I would honestly say in most cases it can be for a lot of people. And for me personally, it is very expensive because I currently do not have a girlfriend and I am not dating anybody right now. But if I wanted to go out there, I can imagine the cost that it would incur on myself to actually go out there. The cost of gas, the cost of going out, the dinners, the activities that are, the time invested is also worth something. It's definitely one of those things that, to me is like if I organically meet someone or maybe even reach out and go out there to try to find somebody out there, am I am I going to consider this going to be a cost that I'm going to have to bear? It's going to be up to myself to sort of decide, is this worth it? And in my current case, it's like, you know what, I'm happy with where I am. So I might find somebody that completely changes that to me. But right now, I think it's, to me personally, it's a deterrent.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth, and during my single time periods where uh, at certain points in life there just was no way. I was telling myself, but when we think about what we offer a person and what when we go out and put ourselves out there, uh, if you don't have that extra money to not, I mean, this is not just dating. This is beyond dating. This is like not just for dinner, but like what about the next dinner and the next one, and like what if it turns into a relationship? Can I even afford to be in a relationship right now? And if people are struggling, and a lot of people in America are, and around the world, sometimes if you can't put your best foot forward and be able to handle it financially, it's gonna fall apart just because of that. So that's a really important one.
Yeah, and then we talked about this in the previous discussion, in the previous topics. But is being cheap a turnoff? It absolutely is, and that's for both men and women. Uh, but the question that you sort of have to live with yourself: do you think, is it messed up if somebody orders an expensive item when somebody else is picking up the bill? I
Yes.
think yes. I think it. Yeah, I think it is sort of messed up. I mean, it really depends on the situation. I mean, if it's a first date, yeah, I think so. But I mean, you want to know, is this like a one-time thing? Like, is it important? I mean, like most first dates, you want it. I think you would expect both parties to want to keep it sort of as inexpensive as possible, assuming both are going to be paying for things. But sometimes you run into that particular person who wants to have the lobster or the crabs or whatever is expensive on the menu. Maybe a bottle of champagne can cost you upwards of $100 just for the bottle of champagne itself. It's like, is that expensive item worth it for a date, especially a first date? Probably not.
Right. I mean, it depends on the person, right? If the person is coming out to see how much you'll spend on them, and that is like a way that they find value in themselves, like, oh, I'm the kind of person that can get someone to spend $300 on me on dinner on the first date. Like, if that's your thing, well, first of all, you're rude. Like, that's not cool. You shouldn't be going out there doing that. And second of all, you should have enough self-esteem to not have to do that to get validated. So I would say, go out there and order food that you want to eat, that you're happy with, but like be considerate of the person across the table. If you know this person's leading with their wallet, if they're basically like fugly as hell and you're amazingly hot, and like that's the dynamic and we all know what's going down, then yeah, get whatever you want to on the menu. But eh, if you're being considerate of this person, you're actually interested in them, and you're kind of meeting on equal grounds, then maybe order something from the middle of the menu. And as you guys get on in your relationship, then you can say, well, actually, I really want to try this more expensive thing, and the person will likely say go for it, and there won't be an issue.
Yeah.
But being cheap early on is a killer. It is going to sweep the legs out from under uh, the I don't know what to call it, the mojo, whatever it is, that that energy, that chemistry, the juice that projects you forward in the early part of the relationship. So if you show up as a cheapskate and you are pinching your pennies and trying to like nudge them towards the cheaper appetizers, let's just share three appetizers, that kind of thing on the first date, man, you just stay home, okay?
Yeah, and then that gets us to our next question: is like, are you impressed by someone who spends a lot on dates? I think this question is sort of like, it shouldn't be the main aspect of that particular person. Does that person spend a lot? Possibly, but it shouldn't be what the main thing that sort of impresses you. Like the whole idea of a date is to get to know someone, to be sort of enthralled by the other person overall, not just by the money he spends, but like the personality that he or she has. And unfortunately, it's like, sometimes by splashing the cash, it can sort of disrupt that. It's like, oh, I had a really fun time with Ken as we went to this really expensive place, and then we're going to go to this expensive place again. Do I like him for his personality, or do I like the fact that he's just spending money on me? Something that you really do have to ask about yourself. I mean, and to me, it's like it's a way to impress somebody, but it's not necessarily something I would like to do on a first date. So,
Right. And also, I think people that spend a lot on dates, especially early on, are trying to compensate for something. Like they're trying to get the attention on that as opposed to something else. I feel like if you've got the personality and you've got that sort of natural connection and chemistry going, you don't need to do that. You can just go have it like a normal experience, but like the connection between you two will be what makes it amazing. Whereas if you just come out and spend a bunch of money to show up in a limo and have $150 bouquet of flowers to hand them, and like, yeah, I don't know, if you're just going big the whole way through, they're going to be excited by that, and you are just the person that paid for it. Like, I don't know that that makes you special, and you may only be attracting a particular kind of person who wants fancy nice things and not someone who wants you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's the thing. That's something you've got to be careful about with regards to spending a lot on money. It is impressive, but you don't want to make that the main aspect of your personality.
Right,
So,
and you
like,
don't want to set a standard that you can't maintain.
mhm.
Right, if you're scraping together money and you go so big early on, they're going to think that that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah,
And when it runs out and when things start getting a little cheaper, a little cheaper, a little cheaper, they're going to start saying, "Hey, what did I sign up for here?"
exactly. And that argument will come up if the he or she gets used to that type of personality. And then for those, another question is like, does it get tiresome spending money on strangers to see if there's a spark? I think the part about online dating that people find the most aggravating is this part, is the I have to spend time to meet somebody who all of a sudden just doesn't, not all of a sudden, but like more likely than not does not meet my current standards. And it is frustrating to a lot of people, both men and women. Men who are paying for the meals, or even women who end up paying 50-50 if that's what you agreed on in the beginning. I mean, it's like it after a while, it's just like you start to feel depressed about yourself. It's like, why do I keep picking all of these wrong guys? For a guy, it's like, man, all these women only, they're coming in, they're having dinner. It looks like we're having a good time. I don't get a call back, or I don't get a message saying I'd like to see you again, or I try to reach out and I get ghosted. And it's one of those things that it is the major part, I guess, of dating, that you just have to sort of fail and try again. And there is a cost with regards to it. And if you do it too often, it can be a real detriment to the wallet. So,
Yeah, and I think for this question, I think this is kind of a journey versus destination
hmm
question. Like, if you are a person who's going out and doing it, going through the early part of dating because you just want to have a person to be with in a deep romantic relationship, that like, that's your goal, that's the destination, and you're just struggling through the first part, then this is going to be harder on you spending that money to do that, because it not only does it suck, but then it's costly. Right, but if you're a journey kind of person and you say, I'm going into this thing tonight because the experience of it is going to be something for me,
hmm
and getting to know someone is going to be something for me. Eating dinner at this place that we're going is going to be something for me. So then you're coming in with your needs being met just by the experience. I mean, of course, it could be a letdown. It could lead to nothing. The person could be a jackass or whatever. But the thing is, if you keep your goals a little closer and not so far distant, and you say, I'm going to go for the experience over the destination here, then I think you could be happier with having to spend that money early on.
A personal trick of mine, especially if it is going to be a first date, go to some place that you want to go. If you know you're going to be the one spending the money, for example, pick a place that you want to go or have always wanted to try. So even if the experience with the date isn't good, then you can always say that you ate at a location that you wanted to go to and tried it out and tried a meal there. Like I'm a little bit of, but that's just me because I'm a little bit of a foodie. Like I want to pick a nice place because I myself want to sort of go there and experience it. But to each his own when it comes to like initial date locations. But that's my little
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I wouldn't take people to the same place. Like, I've heard stories about people who will go on Tinder dates every night of the week or whatever,
Hmm.
and they'll take them to the same restaurant, and they'll have the same waiters and stuff like that showing up, being like, oh, there you are again, with somebody different this time. It's like, switch it up a little bit. Learn, you can learn something about yourself by going out and exploring the city, trying different foods and stuff. If you already go, if you go into a place and they know what you order, and that's not going to give it a great sense of who you are. That you're
Hmm.
just like the person that goes to the same pub over and over and over again. Like, live a little.
Yeah. Ah, try something new. It'll be an experiment, an eye-opening experience for everyone that's going out there. So, Tim, we spent a good hour now talking about all of the costs. Is there anything specific that you would want to sort of impose knowledge of to our audience today? If there was one thing they needed to sort of take away from all of this, what would that thing be in your opinion?
Uh, so the today's topic is the cost of dating, and it's inevitable. You're going to have to deal with this if you want to be dating, and if you want to be in a relationship. These things exist, and you need to, you know, you need to pay for it. Um, to be frustrated by it is understandable. To let it limit you, though, is uh, counterintuitive. You should not opt out just because of money, and uh, you should not actually limit the experience of dating because of money. Because if you put, if you use your money the right way, so that you're having a good time, the person you're with is having a good time, and you don't, blow all your budget, and you just keep kind of like a balanced experience of dating with money, I think it's going to be important for you, because without that, you will suffer. If you go too stingy with the money and you go too big with the money, you're more likely to have it blow up in your face. So just balance.
Yeah. And if I had one thing to be ready is be ready. That would be like be ready to spend a lot, be ready to spend nothing. It just really will be dependent on the person on the other side and yourself as to what you're willing to put out there. I mean, if you are willing to spend the cash and do all of those things and you have the wallet to back it up, good for you. If you do not have a lot of money, then you have to be ready to anticipate some financial excesses that you're going to suffer through as you go through your initial first dates. And you're almost, I don't want to say the word gambling, but you really are, because the money that you put in might not necessarily come back to you as a relationship. It might just be a seven out, as the people who play craps understand, which you have a little money invested, all of a sudden you sounds like you're going to get something back, and then you get nothing back, and you end up losing it all. So the thing about it is just be ready for it. Be ready for unexpected costs. Be ready for um, things and plans that you're going to need to do, and you have to have that little bit of backup in order for it to work out. And hopefully, we have been helpful to everybody that's been watching us today. And I hope people like the format. Please email us. Let us know what you think. Drop us a line on Twitter if you think you like the show. We'll be putting on. We will message and put links to the show on here in Twitter, but in Twitch. But we mostly upload the videos to YouTube so that people on YouTube can watch it at your own leisure. This will not have any timestamps because we basically go over everything in this entire hour. So actually, thank you so much for joining us today. I think that's going to be it. Tim, anything else you want to bring up to anybody else?
Just to let them know, Wednesday night is our usual night for this
that's right.
stream, and usually around 10:30 Eastern time. So if you have questions or you have, you want to send us an email with a personal question that you want us to bring up and build into our show, you feel free to, look below there and get our email address and send us a note, and we'll get back to you.
Absolutely. Don't forget, we are on Wednesdays too. And if you miss our show live, catch us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that little follow button up on the top. If you like what you're listening to, and you just sort of send us out, and make sure it's nice content in the car. If you want to listen to it in the car, I re-listen to the shows in the car to see how I'm doing, so it's really nice. But in the end, that's going to be it for both of us. Hopefully, this experimental cast of a single topic has been helpful for you with regards to realizing that dating has a cost, and in this particular case, a financial cost, and it can be expensive or inexpensive as you wish. But that's going to do it for both of us. Thank you for joining us today on this Sunday evening, and join us again on Wednesday for our normal Twitch line casts somewhere 10:30. Make sure you follow this channel. Make sure you're up on our socials, and we hope you have a good evening.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.